All right, let's dive into one of the most important economic essays ever written. We're talking about F.A. Hayek's The Use of Knowledge in Society from way back in 1945. This thing was an absolute game changer for how we think about economies, information, and, well, who knows what.
So, let me ask you a question right off the bat. What do you think is the single most important problem for an economy to solve? You might be thinking it's about, managing resources or making sure enough stuff gets produced. But Hayek, he argues that we're often starting with the wrong question entirely.
And that gets us right to the heart of Hayek's big idea. The real economic problem isn't what most people, especially economists at the time, thought it was. He basically says we've completely misdiagnosed the challenge.
Okay, so the common view, particularly back then, was that economics is kind of like a giant math problem. The idea was if a central planner could just get all the data, all the resources, all our preferences, they could just calculate the most efficient way to run everything. But Hayek comes along and says, whoa, hang on a second. The real problem isn't the calculation. It's the fact that all that data is never neatly given to any one person or committee. It's fundamentally a knowledge problem.
And you can see it right here in his own words. Hayek says this whole idea of resources being given is just plain wrong. The critical information isn't sitting in some central database. No, it's scattered in millions of little bits and pieces, in the minds of every single person participating in the economy.
So if the main issue is knowledge, we got to ask what kind of knowledge are we even talking about? And this brings us to a really crucial distinction that Hayek makes between two totally different types.
On the one hand, you've got what we'd call scientific or technical knowledge. This is the stuff you learn in school, what experts have. It's theoretical, it's general, you can write in a textbook. But then there's this other kind of knowledge, what Hayek called the knowledge of the particular circumstances of time and place. This is the nitty-gritty, practical, on-the-ground info that people have about their specific situation. And here's Hayek's radical claim. He says we massively, massively undervalue this second type of knowledge.
To make this real, who are these people with this special local knowledge? Hayek gives us some perfect examples. Think of this shipping agent who knows a boat is about to leave port half empty, or the factory manager who knows that one particular machine is idle this afternoon and could be used for something else. This information is incredibly valuable, but it's also fleeting, it's specific, and it is totally invisible to a planner sitting in an office hundreds of miles away.
And this, right here, is the mic drop moment in the essay. Hayek is basically calling out the cult of the expert. He's saying that this huge, unorganized, messy, everyday knowledge held by millions of ordinary people is just as important, and maybe even more important, for a working economy than all the fancy theories put together.
Now, if you accept that this local knowledge is super valuable, that leads you directly to Hayek's powerful critique of central planning. See, if you think only scientific knowledge matters, then yeah, having experts plan everything from the top down sounds pretty logical. But if local knowledge is the secret sauce, well, that whole idea starts to look pretty shaky.
And here's why. A planning committee can collect all the big picture stats at once. How much steel was produced last year, national unemployment rates, that kind of thing. But it is completely blind to those millions of tiny, specific, constantly changing opportunities known only by the man on the spot. The system is just too slow, too clunky, and too far away from the action.
Hayek tells us exactly why this is impossible. You just can't put this kind of knowledge into a statistic. I mean, how do you put the knowledge of a half-empty cargo ship into a spreadsheet and send it up the chain of command? You can't. By the time you did, the ship would have sailed. That knowledge is only useful if someone can act on it right here, right now.
So, if central planning is a non-starter, what's the alternative? This is where we get to Hayek's most famous and, frankly, beautiful idea, the marvel of the price system. He wants us to see prices not just as a way to figure out how much something costs, but as an incredible, high-speed information network.
Let's walk through his classic tin example, because it's just brilliant. Okay, step 1. Imagine a tin mine somewhere in the world shuts down. Step 2. The supply of tin drops, so the price goes up. Now here's the crucial part. Most people don't need to know why the price went up, they just see the price signal. So step 3. A company that makes tin cans sees this higher price and thinks, maybe we should use less tin or find a cheaper substitute. Then step 4. A producer of, say, aluminum sees there's more demand for their product and they ramp up production. And the final result? The entire global economy adapts to the tin shortage almost instantly, without a single person issuing an order and with almost no one knowing the original reason why. And this is the part that Hayek just found so amazing. This is the marvel. The price system coordinates the actions of literally millions of people who don't know each other and will never meet. It gets them all to move in the right direction, without a single boss telling them what to do. It's mass coordination without a coordinator.
So the best way to think about it is that prices are like a telecommunications network. They take an unbelievable amount of complex information about supply, demand, scarcity, opportunity, everything, and compress it into one single, simple number that everyone can understand and act on. It's the ultimate in data compression.
So for our final section, let's just zoom out a bit. What does all this really mean? Well, Hayek says this incredible system, nobody designed it. It just emerged.
And this brings us to this huge concept called spontaneous order. These are complex, amazing systems like human language or common law that are the result of human action, but not of any single human design, right? No committee sat down to invent the English language. It just grew and evolved from millions of people interacting over centuries. Hayek says the price system is just like that. I love this quote because it really shows the humility in his argument. We didn't create this system because we were so smart. We just stumbled upon it. We found that it worked, and we started using it long before we could ever explain why it worked. It's a tool that's way smarter than any one of us.
And that brings us right to the core takeaway of the entire essay. The real economic problem isn't figuring out how to control everything from the top down. The real problem is figuring out how to get rid of the need for conscious control in the first place. It's about setting up a system with the right incentives so that millions of individuals, each using their own unique local knowledge to pursue their own goals, end up benefiting everyone else without anyone having to tell them what to do.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If this powerful, undesigned system can coordinate a whole global economy, how many other systems in our lives, in our companies, in our communities, also work best as a kind of spontaneous order, without a central designer trying to control every little part? It's a pretty big question Hayek's work leaves us with. Thanks for tuning in.